Leaf with the Legends podcast highlights people doing exceptional work in the areas of sports, entertainment, business, and entrepreneurship. Make sure to like this video, leave comments down below, and subscribe to the channel. As always, be legendary or be lost. Yo, yo, yo. We are back with another episode. Got a very special guest today. Got a very close friend of mine, a mentor, a logistics just guru, former executive vice president of Global Trans, philanthropist, just an all-around great guy, father, husband. Got my man Jim Weatherly here, man. Thank you for joining the podcast.
Leef, thank you very much. Thank you for that fabulous introduction.
Oh no, no doubt,
I'm
no
going to
doubt.
start looking over my shoulder to see if that guy's here. But I guess you're talking to me. So thank you very much for the introduction. Much appreciated. And it's good to be with you, my brother from another mother.
Absolutely,
I'm
absolutely.
excited.
Now we go back, Jimbo. So once I had the idea of starting, Leaf with the Legends, that highlights, people doing special things in sports, entertainment, business, and entrepreneurship. You were definitely top of that list. So I'm like, let's make it happen.
Oh, I'm right there with you. We've had a lot of water under the bridge. Time flies, and I have so many memories, with you and Al and all the other
Yep,
suspects and friends, watching you grow and your yes with your brother, and actually allowing me an opportunity to even invest with your brother
yep.
in his ventures. So, yeah, it's been an interesting ride, and I'm honored that you wanted to talk with me and I can share my journey because it's been kind of a wild ride. I try not to think of myself sometimes, realize the age that I am. There's an old joke that I always tell. It's like, hey, I'm not going to act my age. I'm going to act my shoe size. But I have so many great memories of with basketball, where I
Yep,
actually met you, was
yep.
getting involved with my son and the playground warriors, and all the road trips that we had, and that
Good
was
time.
outside of all my other life, which was, the starting out as a school teacher, moving on into, the logistics world, which is an interesting story in itself. And then doing that for 40 years,
Mm,
and then realizing that I was facing retirement, and with trepidation looking at retirement and saying, what am I going to do when, when I end up getting acquired, selling my company? There was a certain uh, I don't want to say anxiety that I think people face when they go into retirement, but I've kind of feel like I've got new energy, gotten into a little bit into staying in two of the things I love, sports and entertainment. So I've been able to kind of transition into that.
no, for sure, for sure. No, and we're gonna get into the weeds of those, a little bit, later on in the conversation. But just starting off, Jimbo, I wanted to uh kind of, growing up, like let's talk about your childhood, growing up in Milwaukee, early on, and like how that shaped your work ethic and drive to be successful.
Yeah, no, it's I have a real connection with Milwaukee, and I think my dad gave me that interest in the historical background and the history of Wisconsin and Milwaukee in particular, just because of his upbringing and what he shared with me about his life. But, I was shaped in that by my father, who was part of what I like to call the greatest generation. And you were probably I think you were at his funeral, which
Yeah, I
I
did. Yep.
had,
Yep. Absolutely.
and I still have a reminder of him on my desk that we had at the funeral, which showed a picture of his hands and everything he had experienced in life, which was an incredible life in itself. Um, and so there was a different time, a different generation, probably, probably similar to, I hate to, bring back the age thing, but probably your grandfather,
Yep.
probably you can relate to your
Absolutely.
grandfather, that,
Absolutely.
that, that era. My
Yep.
dad grew up, went to West Division High School in Milwaukee, and, unfortunately, went off to, he was on his own by the age he was 17 because his parents were both gone. He was on his own. He lived with his uncle after his mother passed, and he was off to UW. And then World War II started. He graduated in engineering and went on to MIT through the service, to which I always tell people is kind of a funny story in itself, because he ended up becoming a lieutenant after officer candidate school, and ended up, they sent him to MIT in Cambridge, Massachusetts, to study what else for a Weatherly but meteorology. So he actually became a weather officer and spent a lot of time in overseas during the war, which was a traumatic time because he ran a couple of air bases in England, but he went from England to France to Germany and had a very interesting life. But the one thing he did was, as far as how it affected my upbringing, was um, he was just one of those quiet mentor. I think I took after my mother more, as you can tell. I'm a little more loquacious, and I like to engage, and I'm a little more. My brother was the introvert and took after my dad, whereas my mother was the Irish outgoing lady, and I think I took a little more of her personality. But he instilled in me the work ethic and just the value system of right and wrong, and a discipline, but also a love for Milwaukee. And he had a job working for his uncle, so his uncle was a big caterer in Milwaukee, and actually everybody knows in Milwaukee where Zafiro's Pizza is,
Oh, for sure.
Farwell.
Yep.
Well, he lived, and it was so interesting for me because still my favorite pizza place when we're here in Milwaukee. But he lived in the parking lot to the north of Zafiro's, and it was a big house. And he would tell me that, yeah, Zafiro's was our barber shop next door, and he worked at actually the town club, which was on the where the CVS is on the corner of Brady and Farwell. But that was the town tennis club, and he used to like shag tennis balls and fill up the soda machines for, like, I think a nickel a day or something, which
Wow.
was
Wow.
back in the 1930s was probably big money.
Yep.
So, but he would take me for drives when he was older. His shortney, I had him at the Catholic home when my parents were elderly and took care of them there. But he would drive up and down Lake Drive, and even though his short-term memory wasn't that good, in his 90s, he would remember all of the houses on Lake Drive in Milwaukee and where they did parties. And it was his uncle's company had like a tent with a dance floor, and it was a big operation. So they did all the parties for the Elines and some of the beer barons back in the day in Milwaukee who lived on Lake Drive in these mansions. So it gave me a real interest, just the people that he met and who he shared with. Some of the people that he met at West Division went on to the University of Wisconsin with him and became very well known individuals during the development of Milwaukee's economic future in the 50s and 60s and so on. So he was a great mentor. That's all I can say is that
Awesome.
he's the guy that taught me right and wrong, and a value system that held me in pretty good stead until I took some wrong turns in high school, which we can talk about. But I think
Hey.
because the statute of limitations is they run out on all those things.
Hey, hey, we can we can jump over high school and we can skip right to college. So
Okay.
so with with that background and the foundation that your parents set, mainly it sounds like your father, which you took after. So when you got to, so you end up choosing UWM for college, but
Correct.
you didn't after graduation you didn't get right into the logistics business. So can you talk about like what you graduated in and what you thought you were going to get into?
Yeah. Well, I was very influenced by a lot of teachers when I was growing up. I went to, and talk about a day past, I went to, which you remember because I turned it into a
Basketball
basketball
gym.
academy for
Yep.
kids,
Yeah.
but I went to Holy Cross Grade School on 54th and Blue Mound, which back in the 60s, I still had old nuns and their habits, and I think I only had one lay teacher when I was in third grade, but all of my 8 years of grade school, I had all nuns in the Notre Dame teaching the order, the Notre Dame sisters. And so I had a very disciplined, was an altar boy, and had a very disciplined education when I was in elementary school. And then I went after that. Half the kids in my, we had half the kids, half the boys at Holy Cross Grade School went to Marquette High School, and I think the other half went to Pius, which I decided I was going to be part of the Pius crew, partly because my older brother, who was 2 years ahead of me, was already going there. And so I went off to Pius, and then, was in college, and I really felt a pull towards that same same love that I had of a lot of the teachers who in me and a time in, because I had a time in my life in high school where my family was kind of, I don't want to say falling apart, but there wasn't the same amount of influence because of some
Yep.
issues within my family, my father not being there, my mother having to go to work full time. So I had a lot of rebellion and feelings going on, which led me to do some negative things, which actually got pulled back in by some male dominant influences at my high school at Pius. And I was always very thankful for some of those mentors that I came into contact with that kind of helped me um, stay on the straight and narrow until my father came back in my life. So I think that appreciation of those people when I graduated from college. I really decided through a couple of volunteer things that I did to become a teacher. And my older brother was actually headed in that direction and ended up being a teacher for, I don't know, like 35 years, retired as a teacher. So I kind of like, yeah, I looked up to what he was doing in education, and I decided to become a teacher. So my first experience, if you ask me, was a love of working with kids, the same love that I got from a lot of my teachers and mentors and coaches. as I was going through grade school and high school. So, and college, just volunteering. I did some, student teaching at Our Avenue School, which was on, I think it was on Third or Fourth and Burleigh. And I taught at a school out in Wauwatosa on Glenview Avenue, and I really enjoyed it. Younger kids, older kids. I just had a real love. And that led to a teaching position out in the Germantown public school. So I went from this Catholic educational background, and that was the whole thing about education was I really wanted to teach at one of the Catholic private schools, but I realized as a male teacher, the discrepancy in pay between the public schools and the private schools became very obvious to me at that time when I was coming out of college. And as much as I wanted to teach at the private school near Holy Cross, actually, it was another Catholic school that had an opening. It couldn't afford me the opportunity that the public school did. So I took a job, my first teaching job, and I stayed there at several different schools, was in the Germantown public schools, and taught out there. Just loved every minute of it. I was young, I was single, I was totally dedicated to teaching and loved the job so that I would even do things on weekends with
Mm.
kids. I'd set up special field trips. I was young and had a lot of energy. I would take them roller skating, and
Oh, that's dope.
the kids would invite me over to meet their parents, their house for dinner. Some of the other teachers actually got irritated with me and my grade level because I had so many requests before the school year with people wanting to be in my classroom because my
I mean,
whole
can
goal,
you blame them?
I wasn't mailing it in, Khalif. I was like not sitting at my desk telling kids what to do. I
Right.
was animated, active, moving around and engaging the kids. And I really thought that was what teaching was all about. And I used to pull pranks. I mean, one of my favorite things, just a story, if I could relate it to you, was April Fool's Day. I had a regular gig, but that I would tell at the end of the day, you would hand out things to take home,
Hmm.
announcements, school district announcements to give to the parents and about upcoming, you know, so I would hand out these announcements and basically tell them that unfortunately, because of all the snow days and inclement weather days, that we're going to have to extend the school year to July 1st. And if you could see and I had it done in a very official document on letterhead. So you can imagine the face on the kids, like, because I was extremely serious and they'd be like in shock. And then, of course, I'd say, April Fools. And,
I
oh,
love it.
Mr. Weatherly, oh, why did you do that? So I had a lot of fun teaching, but it was very rewarding. And I was going to graduate school to get my degree in educational administration because I thought, well, there was always, I wanted to, like anyone, you want to go on to the next level and the next step. And I wanted to better myself in terms of not only income, but also position. So I thought, well, I'll become and I admired the principal and the superintendent of schools. So I thought, oh, I'll go on and, get a graduate degree in educational administration. Little did I know that there was a fork in the road coming, and I ended up doing something totally different.
Jimbo, so as a successful business owner uh, of a logistics company, what was your leadership style?
Well, when I came from teaching, um, I think one of the things that I took and kind of transitioned into my leadership style and business was using, the what I did, when you're a teacher, you're kind of a team builder, you're engaging the kids and collaborating. And I was always very good at getting groups of people or groups of kids or teachers to collaborate. I was active in starting a gifted and talented program when I was teaching, and I had the first class, and we didn't have enough for a full class, so I actually had kind of a hybrid class when I was teaching, which had gifted kids, and I realized I didn't couldn't teach to these different levels, but I found a great way to get the kids who had some higher skill levels uh, at that point in time in their education and have them collaborate and work with some of the kids that maybe were having some difficulties. So I think I was able to transition or take that gift for team building, collaboration into the C suite in business. And I always tell people as a entrepreneur that when I was working and when I started my own company, I was never it's my way or the highway kind of guy. I was always wanted to reach consensus and buy-in from people that were the key executives. And so there's an old kind of thing where not an old thing, but it was funny because I'd always look at my key people and I'd say, we'd have something on the table that we were discussing, and I'd always say, well, what are your opinions?
Mhm.
And if we came to a loggerhead and we couldn't figure out what we're going to do, I would make that final decision. But one time, one of the guys said to me, how come you always want us to, involved? And I said, well, that way, if it goes south, I can always help share the blame with you guys.
Yeah, for
So,
sure. Yeah,
it's a double-edged sword, collaborating, even when I started the business, I talked to a couple of guys that I was working at another company with to leave with me, take a chance on starting something from scratch. But, you know, risk is a little bit easier to take when you share that risk with
for
other
sure.
people.
Yep.
So, I don't care what it is, any risk, any change in life, or be it marriage, business, anything, if it's a shared responsibility, consensus. So I'd say the number one thing was, and I was fortunate because I was that kind of guy that it resonated with employees. I really tried to treat, even as the company grew and expanded, I always tried to keep a family feel. And I was fortunate I had people that worked for me for 28, 30
That's
years
special.
for the whole time. And you don't see that in, generations now. I mean, people who work at jobs are so transient and changing jobs all the time, looking and it was different in other generations, and I was able to kind of go against the flow and keep employees for a long time. To be honest with you, I almost took it personal if somebody wanted to leave.
Yeah. I mean, but that speaks volumes to the type of person that you are, and the work environment and culture that you built. So So that's a good segue into my
Thank
next
you.
question. Oh, for sure. That's a good segue into my next question, which is so over, you know, probably about 20 plus years, your company achieved like double, sometimes triple digit growth annually. So how important, and I heard you say you kind of poached, some of those, some of those members from other, from the other company, but like how important was the team to that growth, that growth success?
Oh, it was everything. I mean, you know, I mean, when I decided to finally get acquired and somebody after all those years and it was good timing came along and wanted to acquire the company, I made sure that the people that who had been with me the longest,
Hmm.
were all well taken care of. I was blessed and fortunate that it came along at a time, that I was reaching retirement age, a little bit above that. So, couldn't have been better. But, I couldn't have done or accomplished going from starting with, a bunch of, I think we had three card tables, a phone system, and a couple folding chairs. And July 1st of 1989 hit the ground running out of abject fear. Fear of
They
failure is a great motivator.
they saw the vision though. They saw the vision.
Especially, I started that business and I was 40.
Mm.
And so when you start a business at 40, you're like, okay, dress rehearsals over.
Yeah,
It's this is it.
yeah,
I don't want to I'm not going to let this fail. So there's was a real, but the key people who stayed with me the longest were they're still, we get together for lunch and talk about, just like we're doing today, talk about the great times, memories. Of course, memory has a way of softening many times when we thought we weren't going to make it and we had to
absolutely.
circle the wagons and I had to ask people to take salary cuts, and I did, and went through business downturns, and so the loyalty was super appreciated, and I always made that, never forgot to. It's like that sports analogy. If you're the running back or the quarterback, you never want to forget to take your linemen out to dinner who are
For sure.
protecting you.
For sure.
The guys, those people in the trenches need to get their hand raised too, and
Yep.
they need to get the kudos for doing it. So yeah, it was instrumental in the success of the company. I mean, I would have people at conventions come up to me, and it was kind of funny because we did so well for a long period of time, and I was fortunate to get a lot of awards at some of these national conventions for always being the top office in the country prior to becoming part of the company. And other offices would always come up to me and say, "Hey, do you have a few minutes? Can and I'd say, "Sure, yeah." And they always wanted to know, like, can you tell me what you're doing? Like, they always thought there was some ancient Chinese secret or some secret sauce that we had,
Yeah.
and the simplicity of planning the work and working the plan. It sounds like a cliche, but in a lot of ways, it's nothing special. It's just Well, and knowing, being able to see around the curve in the road to look ahead. I mean, we could look back and see all the companies that didn't foresee the future, and I was lucky that I kind of got into the technology part of business, which really fueled the biggest part of our growth. And so if I hadn't have done, if I hadn't have saw that I either needed to get on board or I was going to fall by the wayside in terms of technology integration into business, I can't imagine, it would have been a struggle. So that was a big part of business. But
For sure.
yeah, always been a collaborator and always bringing people together for one common goal, I think is, you know, and I have to just add to that to say that part of the reason that I went into business was because I worked and got paid very well to work for somebody that was the exact opposite.
Mm,
And I was either going to, sometimes in life, I tell younger kids that sometimes out of your most challenging moments or things that you may you may not like what's going on and you may be in a position that is challenging to your core, but some of those are the biggest opportunities for growth.
mm,
And if I hadn't worked for somebody that uh, really I had to leave because it was against my values and systems and worked for a guy that was a my way or the highway kind of guy,
mhm,
I it actually was the impetus or the springboard for me to go into business. So I look at that as all that uncomfortability and wanting to get out of there spawned me going into business.
Man, that's special. That's awesome. That's awesome. So we gonna take a quick pivot. So I met you in 2010. When I started coaching, with Playground Elite, coaching your son Lil Jack. Shout out to Lil Jack. Moon Man, all these nicknames that we got for him, right?
We all got
uh,
nicknames. I don't know if we should get into all of those. Everybody's got one.
yeah. Um, you I mean you earned, two pretty legendary nicknames yourself, just being in that field and what you did and how you helped out with the team. But your nicknames were one of them was GM Jimmy
Yeah,
and the other one was the Weatherman.
I wear those proudly.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, in addition to AAU programs and grassroots, basketball, what other like community organizations are you passionate about and that you are affiliated with?
Well, the basketball thing, just because my son was playing and
Mhm.
I played basketball, not at your level. You were the guys that I associated myself with were real basketball players. I was, just lucky to make a team. But
You got high IQ though. You got very high IQ.
yeah, well, I hope so. I don't know that there's a lot of people that might argue that, but the some of the things that I did actually ended up being giving back. Like you probably remember, we talked about, you know, my son was playing basketball, and I went to sent him to a basketball camp, and I met. You probably remember Mike Lee,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Shout out
and
to Mike Lee.
I thought he was really a talented coach and skills trainer, and it was
Yep.
like he was looking for. He was doing these camps all over, but he was always hustling to try to find a gym or a location.
Mhm.
And I used to drive by my old school on Blue Mound Road, Holy Cross, and we had a gym in there. And I thought to myself, let me check it out. what's going on. So it had was I think the Woodland School had changed
Yep.
hands in administration, and found out that the Sisters of Notre Dame still owned the gym, and so I told Mike Lee, I said that might be a good place for you to kind of, let's see if we can work out a deal with them,
Hmm.
and I'll help you, launch basketball skills training camp there. And so, my memory was, wow, that gym was really new back when I was there in the 60s.
Yeah.
But when I came back, like, 50 years later, it sure
Not so
didn't
much.
look good. Not so much. So I helped borrow him the money to put in a beautiful new floor and renovate the place, because I knew it was a way of giving back to all the kids that he was going to be. You remember Jack's team,
Oh yeah,
we
that was
had
our practice.
practice.
Yeah, that was our home
Yeah,
court. Yep.
that
Yep.
was our home practice
Yep.
facility, and so very good memories. It gave me an opportunity to reconnect with my youth and the old neighborhood that I grew up in. And so I was affiliated with that. And then he started a charitable organization, just mentoring
Yep.
kids. And rather than charging them for training, kind of working with kids that not only had basketball potential, but assisting them with mentoring, because of, as you know, one of the big problems nowadays compared to when your grandfather and father, you came from an intact family. There's obviously a crisis, not only in the inner city, but in general,
Yep.
of
Yep.
fathers who aren't necessarily fully engaged in children's upbringing and intact families. And obviously, the research shows the difference between when you have a mother and a father engaged in raising the children versus a single parent home. So I was, still very interested in that, and tried to associate myself with that, and still had a tremendous, interest in education. I served on the board of directors at Dominican High School, a Catholic high school, for a while, and so yeah, no, I always tried to, and especially now in retirement, always trying to give back to assist charitable organizations, boys club, girls club. Um, right now I have monthly. I I'm able to give monthly to certain organizations, Tunnel to Towers Foundation. So Barrow Brain and Spine in Arizona, because I lived there, is a place near and dear to my heart. So had surgery there, and believe in their mission. So yeah, opportunity to give back. And actually, the things I'm doing in music
Yep. We're gonna get
and
to that.
sports, working with athletes who want to go to the next level in the NBA. I've put money into developing uh, people actually trying to chase their dream, whether it's um, playing basketball or sports at the next level. And, I've got involved, took a crazy turn into the entertainment music
Yep.
business,
Yep.
which you know about. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
been
Let, let's
good.
let's 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 get it. Let's get into that, Jimbo. So a couple years back, you retire. Um, your company gets acquired. Um, you become a snowbird. To Arizona. But
Yeah.
being the ambitious and kind of dedicated entrepreneur and businessman that you are, you embark on a new journey, into the music industry. I would say music and entertainment industry. So talk about, Blue Bandit Records and, what you got going on with that.
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy story. I blame it on my son, little Jack, the basketball player. He was actually the guy that kind of accidentally pulled me into it because, as you know, he was fairly entrepreneurial. And when he was playing basketball, I remember when he was little, he was like listening to hip hop and rap. And
Yeah.
I remember trying to get him like, you can't order those ones that say explicit on Apple Music. And then after a while, he was ordering so many songs, I just gave up,
Yeah.
whatever. So, anyways, he got into hip hop and rap, and then he went off to college, and I was just doing my thing in business. And obviously, he was in Chicago, and I would look at his bank account was attached to mine, and I see all these PayPal deposits coming in for like 250, $500. I'm looking at these deposits, and as a concerned parent, this starts getting your mind wandering about like, why is this kid in college getting all these deposits? He's going to have to file taxes. I'm thinking and I was actually concerned, so I called him up and I said, "Hey, Jack," I said, "what are these deposits from?" And he said, "Well, Dad, I figured out how to monetize my SoundCloud account." And he said, "I've put up all these rappers and artists, and I've got so many people viewing my page that I actually can give an artist a lot of exposure. So I have people that are actually, I think, paying him to put their music up." So fast forward a year, he calls me, and one of the guys who he became friends with put his music up and was out in LA. And he's like, "Dad, he wants me to be his manager, and how do I do this? Haven't been a manager, and me, I'm like, hey, don't worry about it. We'll
We'll
figure it
figure it
out."
out. Yep.
Where is he? LA? I'll fly him in. I'll have my attorney there. So I met at the office. I flew in this rapper. And he had some producer with him, and my attorney was there for our company who knew nothing about music. And we ended up signing him to a management agreement. So my son was off, trying to do videos, and I was kind of helping out more from an investment standpoint too. And I really liked the artist. I got to know him. I flew him, and I had an acquaintance who was in the music business for a long time in Manhattan. So I flew him out, got him in the studio in New York, and met various managers with a big company out there called Paradigm, who managed Maxwell, some well-known artists, and we all had dinner together and talked about maybe developing how we would go about developing his career. And kind of got busy with other things, and nothing really came of it. My son was working on it. And then, lo and behold, one of the gentlemen who was out in New York, who I met with, had relocated to Milwaukee with his family, and had a babysitter who was going to college and here in Milwaukee on tennis scholarship. And he was the music guy. I was more of the business guy, but he knew obviously about our agreement with this rapper. Said, "Oh, I got this girl who's giving my family tennis lessons, and she's really talented." So he's like, and this was towards my career. I was winding down and getting ready for retirement, and obviously concerned, what am I going to do next? And he said, "Well, you should really listen to her." And I listened to her and I thought, wow, she's really good. Matter of fact, first she was doing an Alicia Keys cover, and I was like, wow, that's dynamite. So, anyways, fast forward, I met her, introduction was made. I said, well, she was graduating from college. And so I said, well, if you really are interested in music, you have talent. Like I got her a gig two or two here in Milwaukee. And then I said, the only music school that I was familiar with was the Berklee College of Music in Boston. And I said, well, you should really audition for that. And she's like, oh, I'd never get in. She was from Australia and she came over here to play tennis. But since she was a kid, she had played at, weddings. She had a little band in Australia.
Mhm.
And so I said, you should audition. She said, well, I'll never get in. I said, well, audition. I said, I'll tell you what, if you get in, I'll give you a scholarship. And so, of course, she got in. And then I'm on, I'm already committed. So off to Boston, off to school she goes. And I help her get out there, and she's in school and she formed a band. And so that was going along. And then my involvement in basketball, told her I don't really know anybody in the music business other than my son who got me in originally worked, and I wasn't really a frontline employee, but I said I'll do my best to network. And through that met, as you know, a gentleman in LA who was very big in the whole West Coast rap hip hop, um, development with a record label. And he had worked with a lot of the famous, um, Compton guys like Snoop and Dr. Dre. And so I was introduced to him, and we had a Zoom meeting like this. And he's like, well, I've been out of music, but I know he was still living out in LA. He said, hey, send her out if you're a friend of these. And, he had played at Notre Dame football, and
Mhm.
I knew one of his teammates. So he's like, well, if you're friends with him, send her out and I'll tell her whether you should invest your money and whether she's got potential or talent. And I thought, oh, this is great. I got somebody who knows the business going to tell me whether this is something that this labor of love, has potential. So I tell her, I say, Kimmy, Thanksgiving break, you're going out to LA, you're going to make some music. And she's like, okay. So she went out there. And then after the fact, he called me back after, and they wrote some songs. And he said, hey, he said, I got to be honest with you, she's really talented. And I think she's got the work ethic. So, um, at that point in time, I told her, I said, well, we can either have you go to school or we can go out to LA and invest in you trying to have a career in music. So I talked to her parents. She was on board with that. So, I was reading books and trying to talk to as many people about music. And
Mhm.
one thing I had found out is, well, if you want to control your destiny with the digital music business, the old labels were, didn't pivot or adapt fast enough. So I thought, well, maybe I'll start my own label. That way we'll have control of Kimmy's masters or music and do that. When I sent her out to school, I had an agreement with her where I would be her management. So we had a management agreement. And then I found an attorney in Nashville, trying to find somebody who was, my attorney wasn't very, well, he was a business attorney, wasn't. So I ended up finding an attorney, a music attorney, and formed Blue Bandit, named after my lovable golden doodle. Actually, Bandit Records was taken. So my favorite color, as you know, is blue.
Yep.
So I put Blue and Bandit together and formed a independent record label. And we are in the process now, as you know, of rolling out her first single, actually, October 13th.
Nice.
She's on Spotify, so I'll put a plug in
Yep.
for
Let's do it.
my
Do it.
artist,
Absolutely.
Kimmy. She's on all the platforms. It's KIMMI, period, on Instagram and TikTok. It's Kimmy's official music. And her first song was a feature with an artist named Brian Page, which is called The Greatest Drug, about self love. And it has been doing quite well with over 300, it's got over 300,000 streams
Nice.
in about a month or so. And so got that. And we're going to start. I have a whole catalog that she's recorded. So we've got 15, 20 songs that she wrote either in collaboration or by herself that we're going to start rolling out and maybe do an EP. But I got to be honest, it's been kind of fun where I was like, just kind of reinvigorated me in terms of, people go into retirement, and this has kind of given me another passion, if you will, to understand this crazy, wacky business,
No, she
which in this
she's
digital
definitely
world, there's so many, as you know, there's so many talented people out there. It's almost the recording. Now the hard part is, you can have the Taj Mahal, you can live in it, but unless somebody can find it, which means find your artist with all the noise out there, um, you know, so talent doesn't necessarily, it's important, but it doesn't rule all. So I told her, I promised her, and part of it was a labor of love. I said, hey, I'm going to give this a good shot. It's not like I'm spending money that is going to jeopardize, obviously, my family or anything, but it's a fun, and if something develops where, we're looking at other artists too, if something develops to a certain point. I told my son already, I said, Jack, you are back in the music business because your runway is a lot longer than me at my age.
for sure, for sure. No, and
Yeah.
and obviously, you shared some of Kimmy's kind of her unreleased stuff with me, and just getting an ear for it, and I'm like I'm blown away. Like every track that I hear, like she's so soulful, but then she can be, real smooth with it, but then she can get that kind of aggressive. Like it's real impressive at how talented she is and the range of, a voice that she has. So, I think, with the 300,000 in
Well,
a
I know
month,
she'll
like
appreciate it. Thank you. I think she'll really appreciate that. Her
for
new
sure.
song is going to be, we kind of have this Halloween theme. Although she's in Australia visiting her parents, and I didn't realize they don't even have Halloween in Australia. It's not a thing. So I told her to go film some content. And she, the name of the song we're releasing is Ghost,
Oh
and it's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
about
Yep.
how
Yep.
people ghost each other
Yep.
now. It's kind of
Yep.
an urban dictionary term
Yep.
for like cutting off a relationship. But we're releasing it on Friday. I thought it'd be appropriate. We're releasing it on Friday the 13th of
Nice.
October. So kind of has like that. We're trying to take it kind of that whole Halloween kind of mysterious theme with the song. So
Nice.
keeping my fingers crossed, my man. I hope it does
Absolutely. I
well.
got you. I got you. Hey,
Thank you.
so with the and I'm just gonna speak it into existence with the upcoming success of Kimmy, um, what where do you see Blue Bandit Records in say the next 5 years?
Well, like any business, I mean, there is hard work and luck
Mhm.
involved, and you got to stair step a business, and I've kind of been finding my way. I have a couple people. We've been to Nashville, and I have a um, affiliated with a really great guy there who has been in the business. So I needed to have people that I could not only like my friend in LA, but I need people that I have the business acumen, but I don't always know how to all the ins and outs and the special variables of certain things in
Mhm.
music and how it works. And if I could tell you how many times I've listened to the book while walking Bandit in the morning along the lakefront, everything you wanted to know about the music business, 10th edition.
10th
I've
edition.
listened to that a few times just,
Mhm.
because it's by a an attorney. So, but I have a gentleman in Nashville that I'm working with, and I have a person who's kind of coordinating the infrastructure and the social media part of it, who I met through the acquisition in Arizona. And they're working with me very closely. So we're trying to build the presence. And right now we're looking at, my friend in Nashville has us looking at other artists in Nashville and LA. Obviously, from a budget standpoint, I want to stair step this business, and I would love to add artists in different genres so that, because I love all music. I
Mhm.
mean,
Mhm.
my first love is what Kimmy has going for herself, which is kind of a soulful. She just has a natural voice
Oh, for sure.
or soul R&B, but we kind of steered it a little bit more where we're trying to appeal to that, but also pop. She can cross genre there, but you know, I mean, my guy in Nashville, who I'm working with, manages a couple of artists, a vocalist who's emo, more emotional, kind of poppy, kind of punk uh, attitude, and then he also has a breaking out country star who is lighting it up on social media, but also on the concert tours. So I'm open and looking to partner. I mean, the whole objective, really, to be honest, of having a small independent label is creating some leverage and generating some momentum where you have some negotiating
Yep.
leverage, just like I did when my company got acquired.
Yep.
But being able to recreate that in the music business where we get larger entities, larger labels interested, and they come and they want to sign our artist and maybe take Blue Bandit and become under like a joint venture under another major
Yep. Yep.
label and join so that I have the infrastructure in place for all the label services, the marketing. All you got to do is the money now is obviously streaming is one part of it, and it can be huge if you have a huge head. It can be big, but after COVID and everything, people are so interested in you can big monies to be made in touring, merchandise. There's a lot of they're obviously influencing by you know uh, seeking agreements with different companies, whether it's clothing or anything. You see all the influencers, on all of the digital platforms, TikTok, Instagram, you name it. So those are all.
Yep.
So I guess the answer to your question is all of the above. I'd like to see us eventually get some leverage and grow the company similarly to what I did in logistics and supply chain, and then have a strategy to build it up.
Got you.
Then hand the keys to the car to my son and go, "Congratulations, you're taking." I sold a logistics company, so you didn't get a job there, but here.
Yeah, yeah. It's still some of the fruits of that labor too, though. So it all work out. It
Oh
all work
yeah.
out
Oh, he
for sure.
he actually got me in. He knows the business better than I do, so we talk a lot, and I
That's awesome.
actually trust him. Listen, I just sent him some music to listen to and tell me, hey, what should we release next? What do you think? And so, hey, they shouldn't have the old guy figuring out what he's going to sell to the public. I mean, I'm not
Yep.
selling this to the Catholic home or a retirement village. I got to sell the 20 to 35-year old crowd I'm trying to sell to.
But you got the wisdom though.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
I
got the
hope
wisdom, the
so. I
business
hope
acumen.
so. I hope so. Got to
Absolutely.
just, that's why I keep, what keeps you young and is like the two people I'm working with are like 29, 30 years old.
Right.
So,
No, for
you
sure.
know, when I had my son at 48, a lot of my friends, their kids were already grown. They were like, "What are you doing? Are you crazy?" And I looked at him and I said, "Hey, it's either going to kill me or keep me young,
Yep. Absolutely.
one or
Yeah.
the other."
No,
And
I can relate. I can relate.
I think it's the
My dad
latter.
had my little brother when he was 51. So yeah, I know all about.
I love it.
Yep. Yep.
Kudos.
Hey, so Jimbo, I know you're busy. I love, I appreciate, you taking the time, out. So I got five kind of rapid fire, kind of quick hitter questions. So kind of
Oh,
the first thing that come to your mind, we're gonna just kind of rattle it off.
you can edit this after I say something that's no. Go ahead. I'm
All
ready.
right. So first one. So I know that you're well traveled. You love, fine dining. So you just think about one of your favorite restaurants. You got a table for six, you plus five. Who are your five dinner guests, dead or alive?
Oh, anyone in history?
Anybody in
Okay.
history, dead or alive, family, famous.
Oh man, God, that is a tough one, my friend. Would I really like to? I think I would pick. Of course, I'm going to stay away from politics, but I would love to. In the music industry, I'd like to invite Clive Davis.
Five Davis. Okay. Solid.
It was kind of like he got into music
Yep.
and kind of the old. I would have him, Mick Jagger,
Okay. Yep.
um, from a business standpoint, I would take, of course, everybody says that, Steve Jobs,
Steve Jobs. Okay. Three.
uh, Vince Lombardi.
Oh, nice. Four. Solid. Who's rounding out the party of six?
Did I have all guys? I got to
Yep.
get some. Oh my God. I didn't realize that. I just thought of it. I haven't invited a woman.
Yeah, you got Clive
Um,
Davis, Mick
I
Jagger,
would
Steve
invite,
Jobs.
who I would invite
Who was that?
would be the woman that would be able to handle this crowd.
Who was that?
Margaret Thatcher, who was the Prime
Yep.
Minister of England, the Iron Lady.
That's a
She would stand
that's a
there.
solid dinner date.
She would stand her ground. She did with every world leader. So
Absolutely.
I think that'd make for a very engaging dinner.
Absolutely. All right. Next question. One thing left on your bucket list.
Oh man. Let me see this last year. I did the plane
You
jump.
did yeah, you did the skydiving already.
Okay. cruise the Greek islands.
Nice. Nice. All right.
Did that.
What actor would play you in your biopic?
Nicolas Cage.
There we go. All right. Last one. Phrase or quote to describe your life.
Based on I just bought a T-shirt because it resonated with me. The T-shirt, never, I get a lot of comments on it. I wear it and it just says on the front of the T-shirt, based on a true story.
Nice. Nice. I like it. That's solid. Actually, that was only four. Last one. This is the last one. If you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Barbecue ribs.
Barbecue ribs. There you go. There you go. All right. There you go. There you go. Man, Jimbo, I appreciate you, pulling up to Leaf with the Legends podcast. It's been a very, very great conversation. I appreciate it, man. You've always been someone who I admire, look up to, can go to for advice, support, resources, whatever the case may be. So for you to,
Anytime, my man.
for you to come on here, I appreciate
I
it.
appreciate, you even associating me with any show that is called Legends. I like it. I'll wear the moniker proudly. I
Please,
thanks for
please do.
bringing me on. I just loved having the chat with you, and it's nice to
Absolutely.
rewind some of this crazy life I've had.
Man, it's been a crazy but an awesome life for you. So it's been
Been
another
a good
episode.
ride so
Leave with
far.
the legends.
Let's
Remember,
continue the.
be legendary or be lost. Peace.
Thank you. Peace.